What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Trank. Today we are going to be making a real simple thing. It's really a great project if you're looking to make a simple Christmas gift for somebody or just gift in general. We're going to be making some nice coasters, and again, it's going to be really simple and anyone can do this, so let's go ahead and dive in. So recently a friend asked me if I could make some coasters, and I said yes, that should be a pretty easy project. So I thought it would be a cool video to do just because there's a lot of people who are just getting into woodworking and are wondering what are some good projects and some basic techniques I should know. And so this is a great project, especially if you just got a table saw or something. You really just need a table saw to do this project. Everything else you can just do with sanding. So I'm using a piece of walnut. It's going to be the base for the coasters, and I planned for them to be about 4 inches by 4 inches square. So here I'm just cutting those all to the same length using a stop block, and I was going to do a set of 4, but since I had enough for 5, I decided to cut one extra because I'm going to be doing some inlay on the top, and knowing how things have gone in the past, I could easily mess up. So I made an extra just in case. Now for the inlay, I'm going to be using cherry. I had a rough piece of cherry edge here from some previous projects, and so I decided to use that for the inlay. Now there's lots of different ways to do thin rips at the table saw, and what I ended up finding and what I've found is that just using some sacrificial blocks as the push sticks that will just get, the blade will just go right through them. Honestly, I've been getting better results doing this method than by using a micro jig or by using any other setup for thin rips, just because you're fully supporting the piece of wood with the block. You do need to have a zero clearance insert though, whether you make one or get one. Now the next step is to just cut out the dados for the inlay. Now how I do this is first set a stop block to make the first cut. That's going to ensure that the stripe, when we're doing stripe inlay, is the same distance from the side. Then once I get close to the thickness of the wood I'm going to be using, I use tiny little feeler gauges down to like 1.5 thousandth of an inch, just to make sure that I'm actually dialing this in to be right on the money, because it's so easy to blow past it if you try and do this part by eye. And even though this takes a long time, if you step through it, you're going to get these, you can see how this just snaps right into place with the perfect friction fit. That's the exact fit you want. So if you take your time and use the feeler gauges, that's the cool thing about the Cat's Nose stop block, is you can do that micro adjusting and it works super well. Now on 2 of them I'll be doing straight line inlay, and on the other 2 I'll be doing them at a 45-degree angle. So I just cut a little triangle off camera, and then I just use that against the fence instead of using the stop block. Well, I use both in conjunction, and that allows for basically for the 45-degree angle to be set. And then just like I was with the straight inlay, I just use those feeler gauges and micro adjust that stop block by offsetting the triangle that I'm using for reference. And I just keep doing that again until those inlay pieces just slide in. And here's just a funny little shot. My friend came over and I was teaching him a little bit about turning, even though I'm pretty new myself. And there we go, COVID Hangouts 2020. So with the dados cut, I just could glue in the little inlay stripes, and to do that I just use a tiny bit of wood glue. They really don't need much because of how tight the fit is, and I basically just glue it one at a time, push them in, and then put a few clamps. You really do want to clamp down, especially on the edges, because that's the notorious spot for getting a little gap on the bottom interface there. So you want to make sure you really clamp those down to make sure you don't get any gaps. And this is a pretty easy process. Just glue them up one by one. I just use a wet paper towel just to wipe off any excess glue while I'm doing it, and that's a pretty easy glue up. Now to get rid of the majority of the waste, I use a hand plane once they're all dry, and you can just, it takes maybe 20 shots with a hand plane and you've got the inlay level with the rest of the coaster. So that's a pretty easy process and always a very satisfying process. So you can see here how nice those become once you start to get them flush with the rest. Now here I'm absolutely loving using my new Workbench for the planing. It makes it so much easier having a tail vise that I can use the dog holes with, and I've just been absolutely loving having it. If you didn't see that build, I'll put a link here in the corner where you can check it out. It was a really fun build, and I've got plans available if you want to build a similar workbench. Now here's where I made a royal mistake. I thought that I could glue down the coasters onto a larger baseboard sled and run that through the planer. And I actually still don't know exactly what was causing issues here, but basically the rollers were jamming up and I was getting divots in the coasters. So I really, at this point, practically wrecked them. And so I ended up having to probably plane down probably close to about a 1/16 of an inch in order to get rid of the divots. And fortunately, you know, if you have a hand plane and you know how to hand plane, that's not a problem. It did take quite a bit of work. As you can see here, I did have to take off quite a bit of wood to get them even, but it achieved the same goal and the same result. And this is why I really love hand planing. It's just amazing to see how that, look at that, even at 1/1000th of an inch, how those pieces are stuck together. And here's just some shots of how nice those inlays turned out, taking your time. You just get no gaps. So I'm going to round over all the edges, all the sharp edges of the coasters, and I'll be doing this on the router table. I just wanted to show this cool system because I recently got the Triton router, and I finally got this Infinity Tools throat plate, and that allows you to use the Triton lift handle, and it makes it just like having your router in an actual lift, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, I put on a 1/8 of an inch round over bit, I believe, 1/8 of an inch, and I just quickly run those through. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes to run them all through, and once you do that, they're really cleaned up, really smooth, really nice, and they're, you know, getting pretty close to being done at this point. The final step is just finish off with a bit of hand sanding. Mostly what I want to do at this point is hit those corners because those haven't been touched at all, and you don't want those will easily break off and chip if you don't give them a little bit of round over. So that's where I focus my attention on the hand sanding. And for the finish, I'm going to be using just a bit of tung oil, a couple coats of tung oil, and then I'll be putting some wax on. First, I do some mineral spirits just to get rid of all the wood dust. They've been sanded up to about 220 at this point. And then I come through with the tung oil, and again, I just wipe this on. I like using oil-based finishes because I really enjoy, I think wiping on gets just better results, in my opinion. And so I just start off with one coat, get this sort of base coat going, and then I let those sit for 24 hours, and I came back off camera and gave them all a second coat. And before I put on the wax, and you can see here I added some cork bumpers just to help them sit, you know, sit nicely and keep from scratching. And then I just go ahead and put my marker in there. And then before sending them off, I put on a bit of paste wax, and that's just going to help, especially, you know, if you have water dripping or any moisture. This is going to help protect those coasters from getting water rings or anything like that. And I told my friend I gave her some wood wax with these so that she can apply it and keep them in good condition. But here's just some final shots. I was super pleased. They kind of look like tiny little cutting boards, but I was super happy with how they turned out. They turned out really clean and really nice. And here I also had a small serving tray left over that I had made from some of the wood from the workbench, and so I decided to throw that in here. And I used this cool new knot I learned, for a self-tightening knot, so you don't have to get a third hand there when you're trying to do this kind of tying. If you've ever tied like this, you know what I mean. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one. So I was really happy with how it turned out, and here's some final shots of the final result. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. I'm super happy with how they came out. This is a great project if you're just getting into woodworking. It doesn't take many tools beyond maybe just a table saw to do the job. They turn out super nice. It makes a great present or something. So if you enjoyed this, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot of projects coming up. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.